at Southern Manufacturing and Electronics Show speaking to CEO Joe Booth from Altus. 2022 was a really good year for Altus. Why do you think it was so good?
Okay. Why was 22 a good year? I think it's multifactorial. So we can't really pin it on one thing. But one of the areas that we were quite strong is that the company always looks very far into the future. So second generation family business now. My plan isn't for the next year, it's for 10, 20 years out. And certainly we've benefited from a lot of forward thinking. So firstly, I would say that we hired really good people. We've had probably 4 or 5 new starters in the last 18 months. All of which have settled into the team fantastically. The next thing I would say is that we've developed our portfolio, so now we don't have a single process for a single problem. Most of our customers want an entire solution. And so one of the big changes that we've made is that we can offer turnkey solutions in SMT assembly, THT assembly, component management, and consumables. So you can kind of see us as like a one-stop shop. The other thing that I'm really proud of is that we focus always on not just existing customers, but those that are new to us. We want to share the way that we work and how we support customers across the UK. And last year we had a record year of customers. So we sold capital equipment to 96 customers, up from 82. And over 25% of our business had never worked with us before. And when you think about that, it's kind of, wow. I mean, 3-4 years ago, we sold to, let's say, 45 customers. And so you can tell that our work in getting to know people, reaching out, doing shows like Southern is paying dividends for us in the short term. And then it'd be probably rude for me not to give a shout out to our Ireland team. One of the big things we've done in 2021 is have a local entity. It turns out that to sell in Ireland and be successful, you've got to have feet on the ground. So we've got 2 really capable people that are doing better than we ever thought, and really they're paying into this pot of 22 victory, let's say. I just hope it continues into 2023 as well.
You're pretty optimistic about the electronic manufacturing sector. Why is that going forward? What else can you see?
I guess I'm the forever optimist. I'm a glass half full person for my benefit and for my downfall. But we're super optimistic. I think that this last year and getting through COVID has made us realise how resilient we are as a company. We've doubled down on our strengths, we've stayed nimble, we've tried to find ways to meet customer expectations. And it feels like the shackles are off. Even walking around the show, people are optimistic. They're talking about new contracts, new purchases, and different things that they can do. I think one area that I'm really optimistic about, and I think it's fluctuations in markets, right? So we go through these highs and lows of economic shocks. Well, the economic shocks are really good for people that stay nimble, stay close to their customers. They're not very good for companies that are lazy and have a bit of fat. Well, I think that Altus is super lean athlete, and so I'm sort of ready for it, you know. And the team that we have is ready for it as well. And I think when you look at the government and what they're trying to do now that Brexit has happened, they want to increase the GDP that's related to manufacturing. Well, for us in the manufacturing industry, that comes through the super deduction tax. That means that companies that are investing in the future have a lot of money off the capital equipment they're purchasing. Then you look at the war in Ukraine, which is awful. It's a terrible thing that's happening. But it's no denying it's going to have a massively positive impact for the aeromilitary complex that we have locally. We've got BAE, MBDA, all of the contract manufacturing supply chains will all benefit from that change. And so, yeah, we stay optimistic. I think that when you look at COVID and its reasons that it was so negative, long supply chain for component parts, maybe you were at the bottom of the pile as when you were outsourcing your manufacturing to Asia, the impacts of COVID on nearshoring and reshoring, the amount of manufacturing isn't reducing. We're just getting a larger percentage in Europe and UK, And if the companies that we work with can benefit from those new contracts, then I think the whole industry benefits. I guess for us, it's just keeping our ear to the ground, making sure that when we hear news, we absorb it and we react quickly. But yeah, let's see. I guess I shouldn't be too optimistic, but we're determined to make 2023 a good one as well.
What are the largest trends in the market currently in terms of process optimization?
The largest trends mainly come from macro, so any macroeconomic impacts on our sector. So we've mentioned one of them, which is the B word, Brexit. What people didn't realise when that was double whammied with COVID is that because a lot of our labour in our manufacturing sector is not of English heritage, right? A lot of the guys come from Eastern Europe, they come from Asia, they come to work in the UK for better pay. Well, because of Brexit and then COVID, lots of that labour has moved back to Europe. It means that there's a huge labour shortage in the UK. It means that hiring people is difficult, and when you do hire them, it's difficult to keep hold of them, driving up the cost of the cost per product, driving profitability of product down. And so one of the large process changes we've seen is trying to reduce that labour element. One, because it's really hard to find, and one, because de-skilling any operation reduces the cost of the product. And so we've seen lots of automation in back-end processes. And so what I mean by that is conventional assembly, stuff that's through-hole, goes through the board. Because traditionally, everyone's got a lovely SMT line firing away components and chips down. But lots of people also have banks of solderers manually soldering. So looking at selective soldering, robotic soldering, and automation of placement has been a massive process uptick in the UK, one of our busiest areas. The other one, and everyone talks about, it's really difficult to find components. We've got to order components 1 year in advance, 2 years in advance. But what people haven't really focused on before is investments in how do we look at our component traceability? How do we count them? How do we make it more efficient? So that if we have this much larger supply of component stock in our facility, we've got a really good handle of how we look after it. And so processes like component counting, component scanning in, and even smart racking, like that's behind me, gives people that laser focus on what components they have and how do they use them. But then it's strange, really. There's ripples. There's lots of different ripples that lead to different process trends. I mentioned one about nearshoring. And nearshoring is important because it's where people have subbed out production into Asia or Eastern Europe in the past that want to bring control of the SMT assembly in-house. And so what we've seen in the last year is multiples, and I really mean multiples, of companies starting their first ever SMT line. The unit behind me is an Assemtec Fox, which does solder paste jetting, glue dispensing, and pick and place in a single unit. Well, if you put a reflow oven next to that, then you've got a full production line. So small NPI lines like that for the first ever user has also been paramount. And I think from the 10 or so systems we sold last year, 5 of which were to sites that had never had production before. So yeah, I would say NPI, conventional assembly and component management are the big hitters so far.
How are you in Altus addressing those trends?
I think for the trends that we're seeing at the moment, we're trying to think about the customer journey, so that pain point. So our biggest point of value is how we understand a problem and how quickly we can get a solution to fix that problem. So the trends that we're seeing today, we've been thinking about for the last 2 years, and we're confident at what is happening today we have a solution for. What we're trying to do at the moment is work out the future trends, work out the future problems that people don't even know that they have. And that's the biggest power that we have, really. So Altus Group now works with nearly 300 companies in the UK and Ireland, which is a monstrous amount of people that have problems with their production. what we try to do is understand and get a tight specification of what that problem is now that they're probably going to be looking to address in 2-3 years' time. Because if we can identify a trend or a problem in one site, the chances are that most others in the industry are also thinking about it as well. And so I think in terms of addressing trends, we've got to listen, we've got to really understand the customer, and then we've got to show how nimble we are by finding new processes, developing new processes, and creating new partnerships. When you work in distribution, we don't build these machines. Okay, we're experts on these machines, but for us, it's all about staying ahead, staying on the front foot, getting to the cutting edge, because then we can address trends not just for now, but be a trendsetter in the future. There's nothing like finding the next Ko-Young 3D AOI, right? There's nothing like finding LPKF for laser depaneling. These are processes that we now have that are going to be monsters. So for us, it's going to the shows like this one, going to Productronica, and making sure that we're really on the cusp of what's new. And I think that's how we'll try to address trends moving forward.
You said earlier about attracting more people from local areas since COVID and lockdown. How did you at Altus do that?
It's real tricky, I would say. I think it's my duty for the guys to make Altus as attractive a proposition as possible. I really care about everyone in our team. We really focus on development. We're not perfect by any stretch, but they can be sure that if they have something that they're driving towards, that will support them in their training, in their development. We also try to remove any glass ceilings. We're a company of 19 people now, but in a small company like ours, you can create your own path. And I think once you create a vacuum going upwards for people to develop, you can get people to buy into that spirit. And in the last years, we have done so well on our hiring, mainly because we specify well. We treat the job interview as both ways. So just as someone is looking to join us, it's vice versa. And so we really probably put too much effort in the initial stages, but it's only because we want it to work well. Because if you're 1 in 20, you're quite a big deal to the culture. And then I think the rest is just trying to manage that team spirit as best we can with events and other bits like that. But certainly I'd like to think that there's quite a high level of happiness.